and there's not 3 strikes when it comes to perfect line start. There's only 2. So
that's correct.
It's kind of unfortunate for those guys that we get knocked out. Earthroot would move on. We were kind of talking, and I'll save this for later. I don't want to spoil anything as we kind of move forward, but Earthroot looked to be on a little bit of a tear. That would only kind of be their start to what would be a pretty good run. We'll obviously get to that in just a second, but when it came down to their final match, it was pretty interesting to say the least. Thought they would actually take that one, but they unfortunately didn't. We're going to move on, though, of course, but Earthroot definitely looking to be on a tear. Onslaught just not having a very good tournament, to say the least, at all.
Of course, Earthroot ended up getting their opponent there in Onslaught when they lost to Team Vigor 3-0 in round 2, as that was on the lower part of the bracket. Of course, the top part was EZG and Kingdom Esports, and Kingdom ended up losing that series at the top as well. But, we thought that Team Vigor was going to give them a hassle, but they were the number 3 seed, so that matchup was actually a very important one, considering the fact that it was a number 2 and a number 3 seed going head-to-head in a clash there in the winner's bracket, and that obviously ended up going to Team Vigor. So once, Earthroot Gaming was thrown there into the loser's bracket, they did not look back, and that was where they started their run against Kingdom Esports after they beat Onslaught, and that was a less challenging affair for them. They ended up 3-0ing Kingdom Esports. I honestly didn't see that coming, even though it was a number 2 and a number 4 seed. Based on how Kingdom had started in this, I thought that they were going to do okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Kingdom definitely kind of showed a little bit of good moments here and there. Granted, it was a 3-1. They nearly took the search and like we mentioned earlier, in that round 11 type of situation. But they didn't look to be out of it. Like, they weren't absolutely getting outslayed. It wasn't like a 250 to 100 type of affair. They weren't getting 100-point clubbed or anything like that. They looked to be kind of staying pretty consistent. And when we saw that losers bracket game, the losers round 2 match, when the graphic kind of popped up, I was like, is that actually just happen? Like, did Earthroot actually 3-0 them? Not necessarily, that they didn't win, but the fact that they won in such a dominating fashion. In some cases, it looked to be that Earthroot and EZG would meet up in the finals. That obviously was not the case, a little bit of a spoiler, but based on the fact of, and this is how I was looking at it, EZG, they 3-1 Kingdom, Earthroot, they 3-0 Kingdom. So it's like, if you're basing it off of Kingdom's overall performance versus both these teams, ERG at the time looked to be the more dominant squad, but that obviously wasn't the case.
Yeah, it wasn't the case after all, but it looked, obviously this whole competition here in the playoffs has been just upset and strange outcomes because we didn't know how Earthroot was going to perform after being knocked down, and then they have a good performance, and then they fall flat when they have the rematch of the team they had just 3-0'd earlier on. So it was kind of making me scratch my head a little bit, but that's competitive Call of Duty, to say the least, and anything can happen at any given day. Of course, the beginning of the playoffs were on a different day of the week. And of course, we had to actually postpone it due to how late it was being drawn out, and then we rescheduled the rest of the matches for yesterday. That also ended up drawing out a little bit, as that had to come to a close. I believe it was like 11:30, and some of the players had to go to school the next day, and that was the name of the game for yesterday. But of course, it set the tempo for the losers finals and the grand finals for today. And, of course, Team Vigor has been waiting pretty much for the majority of the day after they won against Earthroot Gaming to play here in the grand finals against EZG. And, of course, we've gotten to that part of the bracket where, EZG has been absolutely electric throughout the playoffs and the rest of the end of the season as well. Based on how you've seen them play, do you think Team Vigor has what it takes to force that second best of 5?
The thing is that whenever you're in that spot, when you're coming from the loser's bracket into a winner's bracket, we've obviously seen this countless times through Advanced Warfare. Honestly, I really encourage, if anyone's ever, an amateur player or at least has been in this situation before, go back and watch VODs of like the momentum and really what FaZe has brought at certain points, because at certain times, when FaZe has been down, I'm speaking more of the Clayster roster, not the one with like Slasher Nakes and whatnot. When you watch that team, there was I can't remember what event it was, but if you just watch a team in some cases, if they do have like player cams and whatnot, just watch how confident that teams play when they come into that first best of 5, because they realize in some ways it's like you're down 0-2 in a sense, because you have to bring this one completely back. If you are coming from that loser's bracket, you've got to be feeling confident, and if you at all slack in any way, the team who's obviously in that driving seat, who's coming from that winner's bracket, has no issue. And in some cases, they're probably going to play not as confident as they normally will because it's like, having a free series in the back of their pocket. If we win this, great. If we don't, well, hey, we got another one in the back pocket as well. But the issue is if you do take that first best of 5, if the winning team is not able to grab that one, that is so much momentum. It's probably one of the biggest momentum boosts that you can have in all of Call of Duty is winning the first best of 5 of a 2 best of 5 series if you're coming from the losers and facing off against them again, because very, very rarely do you see a team who wins that first best of 5 actually lose the next one. It's happened before, obviously, but it's not very likely because of how much momentum that really brings you. In Call of Duty, it's all about momentum. It's all about chemistry. It's all about the communication that goes on between the players and whether the lobby or whether it's even on land between the team comms. So I think honestly, is it possible? Yeah, I mean anything's possible, but I always say not everything is likely. Of course, I think Vigor definitely has a chance. You got to keep in mind the previous rematch that they did play off against one another was in the semifinals, in which case that knocked Vigor down to the loser semis or the losers round 3. That was a 3-0 from EZG. It was the Search and Destroy that really caused Vigor. Yeah. I'm sure a little bit of probably a little bit of despair, to kind of put it in an odd word there. But I'm sure the team comms were not very happy after that. You lose your round 11. You're already down 2-0 at map count. How do you bring it back in the uplink, especially when it's a respawn? I think, honestly, if we're looking at Vigor, if they would at least come out hot, the first hard point, it's got to be at least a game where you make a statement. You got to play really, really well, at least make it close to give your team a little bit of confidence. The Search and Destroy, you've got to win. There's no doubt in my mind. Absolutely. If you don't win the Search, even after you lost the first hard point, that is going to be so difficult because EZG has the momentum. They're up 2-0. They've been in this situation plenty of times, and they're always going to close it down the uplink. You cannot lose 2 respawns, especially against EZG, and you got to come out hot. Similar to like an Optic Gaming or a FaZe or something like that. You got to come out, take them out of their comfort zone, beat them in their games that they feel confident in, and put them on the back foot.
You're right, and that's one thing that even though that semifinals that we got a chance to cast last night, we had so much fun casting that because that was one of the most eventful 3-0s I have casted in quite some time. Obviously, we've gotten a chance to cast not only semi-professional players, but also cast professional players at a LAN event. And obviously, when you cast over professional players, you know exactly what to expect because as casters, you have to study film. You have to really understand what these players are good at. And you're almost expecting certain things based on what you see at the beginning of a round of, say, Search and Destroy or a Ban and Protect phase or anything like that. But when it comes to actually casting over some of these games, they mix it up almost every time. You don't know exactly what they're going to do. You know what they're good at after casting, these teams throughout the season. But it's just crazy enough to see how things change up. So we would have never have guessed that in Game 2, which was Search and Destroy on Breach for the semifinals, that EZG would start off with a 4-0 start so quickly, and then Team Vigor would come back with 5 consecutive rounds to force the round 11. Tell me a little bit about the mindset that we both pretty much had during that game too.
I mean, after the first hard point, it wasn't that bad. I believe it was around like 250 to 1. I want to say it was 163. If my mind is actually correct on that, I'd be very impressed.
168.
160. Okay, I was close. Yeah. It was within 5 points, so I give myself a little bit of a pat on the back for that one. No, but
fist bump.
Yeah, absolutely. But when it came down to the Search and Destroy, though, I was having really high hopes. I was like, please, Vigor, guys, can you please take this one? I want to at least see a game 4. In which case, like you said, we saw EZG come out so hot. They're looking so incredible. And that's when we saw Vigor start to do that. I believe that was the strategy over on Breach, where they would just start rushing players through the middle. They did that like every single round, and it wouldn't work out for them. It was the whole fact of, I believe, EZG wasn't really for sure. They would stack 2 on either bomb site, which is a good strategy, but the only part and the hard part about that is if you have a full team push, a 4-on-2 situation, most likely the team with the 4 players is going to walk away with the gunfights due to obvious situations going on. And that's kind of when we saw the Palace pushes constantly come in for the side of from Vigor. If they went over toward Palace or toward construction, they'd realize the players are there, they'd back up. And the whole part about it is that I think in some ways EZG and some players just in general were kind of like bluffing about through middle. Like you kind of assume someone's been watching through middle. There's 3 lanes. You most likely assume all of them are going to be covered, right? Well, that wasn't actually happening for the side of EZG. There was 2 players watching from either side, and that gave, and in some cases, Vigor a lot of wiggle room to kind of decide what they really wanted to do. If this bomb site's not working out for us, well, let's go to the next one. And that's kind of how it just worked out for them. Is they kind of, in some ways, were like a pack of wolves just surrounding everyone. That was a weird thing. I apologize. But no, they came back, won 4 rounds straight, which was really, really impressive. It ended up forcing the round 11 in the end. It was chaotic. I believe I've watched the replay like 3 or 4 times now. Whenever it was like, I think it was like round 8 or 9. But there was just some really good moments. Like I said, it was unfortunate for Vigor not to be able to close it out, but it was EZG kind of just messing with us. Like, you know what, we'll give them 5 rounds in a row. We'll just take the last 2. We'll just take the last 2. Pretty easy stuff.
It was incredible, to say the least. And, of course, one of my favorite highlights for Game 2 was definitely Stumpy's bait in construction on that B-bomb site with the Locust. I mean, he was being such a nuisance that they were, Team Vigor, I should say, was almost expecting a very quick plant over on B. Meanwhile, all the action was actually going down on A. Bomb went down, and then they were able to clutch up and get that round win after all. So, very exciting stuff in that Game 2. That made EZG go up 2-0 in the series, and of course, the uplink went down to the wire at first, and then EZG just started to really run away with it, doing what they do best, and that's really slay effectively as a team.
Yeah, that's the hardest part about facing off against a team like EZG. The momentum, and we've said this countless times, and I mean, even in the comms, I can't say this enough, and I promise this is the last time I say it, but EZG is just so good at capitalizing. Like I said, they've been a roster, they've been an established team, they know what they're doing. That's the hardest part, coming against a team who's confident and knows what they're doing in some cases. I mean, it's nice to face off against a team where you kind of have a feel, you know exactly what they're going to do. I mean, teams were what? I believe versus EZG, we're seeing teams ban, I think, like 4 ARs against them, like trying to get anything out of their hands, any weapon they possibly could that in some ways would work out for them. And there was just no strategy that would really solidify their spot. I mean, you get rid of the ban of war, you get rid of a number of different things. I think we saw all the tacticals being banned out by them. And honestly, like
everything
EZG,
except the EMP grenades, basically.
Yeah, like the EMP is the only thing left. And the EZG had no issue. Like they were just banning like the regular stuff. You get rid of like a kinetic armor, you get rid of an active camo. I believe we saw actually an active camo ban from Paranoia in the first Harper, which is kind of surprising. I'm not really sure. I just remember that happening and whatnot. But I mean, it was just the fact that EZG knows what they're doing. They realize the teams are going to try to counterban against them. They just played their own game, and they seem to be very versatile when it came to what guns to use. You know, do you run the VMP? They ban the regular ARs. What do we do then? Well, they're just going to dominate you with any weapon in the arsenal that they have. So
and the good thing is, and to comment on that as well, Landon, I definitely think that they won that ban and protect for that final map there, just based on the fact that they started the bans of those ARs, trying to bait out some of the stuff that was going down when it came to what assault rifle they could possibly try to use. So we saw that the Man of War was taken off. The XR2 was targeted as well. So that was a targeted ban there as well. And that kept trickling down up to the point where obviously the M8A7 was also removed from play. And that was something that caused or threw a wrench in the plans of maybe Team Vigor, who's been so confident with their shot with those ARs throughout. So it was exciting to see how that ended up influencing the game at the end of it all. So exciting stuff to lead up to the grand finals. Of course, the only thing to really mess up our grand finals party here on the Perfect Alliance channel has been the servers for Black Ops 3. Unfortunately, they are still down. So at this point, it is currently, I would say, it's almost 11:15 here in the East Coast for those that are playing from the East Coast. And it's honestly a little bit of an issue as far as trying to keep these players halfway awake to be able to compete here in the grand finals. So we're going to double check and make sure that we can figure out something that will work for sure. But it's exciting to go over some of these things during the bracket show. And of course, the bracket show is brought to you in part by Jerky XP, Honey Badger, XSplit, Team Razor, and of course, Custom Config. If you guys are wanting to know a little bit of information on the online qualifiers for Season 2, that kicks off tomorrow, Saturday, March 12th. You're definitely going to want to get involved. There are 2 online qualifiers that have been announced so far. Landon, they're going to have to sign up here because those spots are going quick here. So where do you think those players can find all that information on our website?
Well, you just kind of gave it away there, didn't you? You just kind of.
I was trying to help you out so I didn't throw you to the...
No, I know. No, yeah, I mean, you can find all the links. Obviously, Perfect Alliance. You have a website. We can maybe hand that link down in the chat, so you guys can really sign up. But honestly, it's a really big deal. I would highly suggest that you guys sign up. We got a massive amount of prizes to give away. We have some stuff from Razor. We got some money to give away as well. A lot of different, just overall prizes. I mean, if you can't compete, if you're under the age of 18, this is a really, really big opportunity. And I highly suggest that you do sign up for it if you do get an opportunity. You're not losing anything from it. You're just kind of, in some cases, I mean, you're obviously going to have some time being used. Of course, it's not going to be an easy case by any means. But still, I would definitely highly recommend